Hello and welcome to Ratio with me, Bill Haining, where we're going to discuss direct or indirect ratio. Now, the objectives today are to work with simple ratio and direct proportion, move up to level 2, understand and calculate using ratio, direct proportion and inverse proportion. Now, ratio is something we use to compare how much there is of one thing and how much there is of another. Ratio is written like 2 colon 5 and is spoken as 2 to 5. This means that for every 2 lots of one thing, there must be 5 lots of another. There are some basic rules you must follow to be able to work with and understand ratios. Simplifying ratios is just like simplifying fractions. We do this to make them easier to manage. Okay, so we find a common number or a common factor that we can divide into both or more ratios, then divide. For example, 24 to 8 can be simplified all the way down to 3 to 1, because you can see both numbers can be divided by 8. 200 to 500, if you remember your fractions, for every 0 on the left you can knock 1 off on the right. Okay, and you can see that immediately takes you down to 20 to 50, and again you can see both numbers can be divided by 5, so you end up with a ratio of 4 to 1. Another thing you can do is quickly you can see if this right hand number can divide into 49, and you see it can. 7 sevens are 49, so you can see you can simplify it right down to 7 to 1. And that's how you simplify ratios, just the same as fractions. Basic rule of ratio is that ratios are as you speak them or as you read them from left to right. So what does that mean? Right, Jamie makes a fudge using 2 parts chocolate to 3 parts frosting. 330 grams of frosting is used. How much fudge is made in total? Well, you can see the chocolate was mentioned first. So this is the first part of the ratio. Okay, mention chocolate first. So this is the first part of the ratio, which is 2 parts. Now frosting was mentioned second, therefore that is the second part of the ratio, 2 to 3. Some other rules. You can be given a value and then be asked to divide that into parts or shares, which is the ratio. For example, Christian and Anton share some money at a ratio of 2 to 4. The money shared between them is £300. How much money does Christian get? Right? So you find out the value of one share by dividing by all the shares. Now, you've been asking this question to take this value and divide it into portions or shares. And you can see there are 6 shares there. So you want to find out the value of one share, so you take the 300 and you divide by 6, and that tells you that one share has a value of 50. Now you multiply by 2 to find Christian's share, or you can multiply by 4 if you want to find out Anton's share. So 50 times 2 is 100, therefore Christian's share is 100, which also means that Anton, at a ratio of 2 to 4, must get £200. You can be given the value of one of the parts of the ratio and be asked to find out the value of the other part of the ratio or the total value altogether. The key again is to find the value of one share or one part. So let's have a look. Sue Wu makes his blackcurrant squash by adding 5 parts water to every 2 parts squash. How much water will he add to 20 mils of squash? Now the squash was mentioned second, so you divide by 2 to find the value of one share. So you take 20 mils, which is a value of 2 shares, and you divide it by 2, and that tells you the value of one part, one share, is 10. Okay, then you multiply that by the 5 parts to find out how much water to add. So 10 times 5 is 50, therefore 50 mils of water is needed to add the 20 at a ratio of 5 to 2. Let's have another go. Now, a simple biscuit is made from 4 parts milk to 9 parts self-raising flour. 270 grams of self-raising flour is used. How much biscuit is made in total? Again, they are giving you the value of the self-raising flour, which was mentioned second. So that has 9 parts. So you have to divide by 9 to find the value of 1 share. 270 divided by 9 gives you a value of 30 for 1 part, 1 share. Now you multiply by all the shares added together to find the total. So you add the 9 and 4 together, which give you 13 parts. You multiply that and you come to the final of 390 grams to make the biscuit. And that's how you find the total value. You could work out the value of the 4 parts and then add it to the 270. It'll still get you to 390 grams. Okay, so now you try it. A wall is made with 800 red bricks and 350 black bricks. What is the ratio of red bricks to black bricks in its simplest form? Pause the video, see how you got on. How did you do? Yeah, just follow the rules as before. You can see now it simplifies down to 16 to 7. Stanislav owns 56 books and Andreev owns 42 books. What is the ratio of books Stanislav owns to books Andreev owns? Again, pause the video. How did you do? Oh, create the ratio 56 to 42 and then simplify. Okay, and you can see it simplifies all the way down to 43. And if you got 43 and 16 to 7, well done. Jack makes a coffee by adding 4 parts hot water to 1 part of milk. How much hot water should he use if he uses 50 mils of milk? How did you do? It's fairly simple. 50 mils is the value of 1 part. So therefore you just simply multiply it by 4 and that tells you you need 200 mils of water. Now Savannah has red counters, blue counters and yellow counters, a ratio of 6 to 2 to 5. Savannah has 52 counters. How many of each colour does she have? Pause the video, have a go. How did you do? Well, you can see you take the 52 and you divide it by all the values, which is 13, which gives you a value of 1 share of 4. You then multiply by the given ratios for each part. So 6 times 4 is 24 red counters. 2 times 4 equals 8 blue counters. And 5 times 4 equals 20 yellow counters. And to check your answer is correct, if you add all these values up, it should come to 52 at a ratio of 6 to 2 to 5. So if you got that answer, well done. Now a sorbet is made from 1 part honey and 4 parts strawberry. 340 grams of strawberry are used. How much sorbet is made in total? Pause the video and have a go. So how did you do? Alright, so 340 divided by 4 gives you a value of 85. So that's 85 grams is the value of 1 part. And you know that 1 part is honey. So 85 times 5, which is all the parts together, gets you 435 grams in total to make the sorbet. So if you've got 435 grams, good stuff. Move up to level 2 and we'll talk about inverse proportion. Inverse proportion. 2 quantities are inversely proportional if one increases, the other one decreases at the same rate. So for example, as one is doubled, the other is halved. Now it takes 8 workers 25 months to build 10 houses. Assuming they all work at the same rate, how long does it take 20 workers to build at the same number of houses? Now this is where you have to stop and think about this type of question, because the biggest mistake that people make is they take this 25 and divide it by 8. And if you think about it logically, if it took 8 workers 25 months, well, you have to multiply it by 25 because it would take the worker 8 times longer, so it would be 8 times 25. But as I say, the biggest mistake people make is they divide it instead of multiplying it. So simply work out how long it would take for one man to do it, then divide by the value needed. Because you can see, like the rest of ratio, the key to ratio is understanding how to work out the value of one part, and then you can calculate anything. All right, so you see in this case, 8 times 25 is 200. This is the time it would take one man to build 10 houses. You then simply divide that by the 20 workers you can hire, and you can see that it would take 20 men 10 months, which if you look at the question logically, okay, 20 men would do it in more than double it, half the time it would take 8 workers. So have a go. Jotty and her friends knit squares to make patchwork blankets. It takes 4 people 20 days to knit enough squares for one blanket. Pause the video. Okay, so how long would it take 8 people if they knit at the same rate? How did you do? Well, 4 times 20 is 80. So it would take one person 80 days. You then just simply divide that by 8 and you can see it would take 10 days. Now we have 8 bricklayers on a building, which took 25 hours to build a wall. Now the site manager needs a similar wall built. He can only hire 5 bricklayers to build this wall. He needs to know how much longer it will take to build the wall. All right, how much longer will it take? Again, pause the video, have a go and see how you do. So how did you do? Well, you can see 8 times 25 is 200 hours. It would take one man to do the wall. You take the 200, you divide it by the 5 people that you can hire, and you can see that would take 40 hours. All right, so if it originally took you 25 hours, and it's now going to take you 40 hours with 3 less bricklayers, you can see that 40 minus 25 means that it would take you 15 hours longer to build a similar wall. A typical level 2 question. Again, let's see how you got on with this one. Lisa sells fudge in 3 flavours, strawberry, vanilla and mint. She looks at a number of boxes of each flavour she has sold in the last few weeks, and she sold 60 strawberries, 140 vanilla and 40 mint. This week Lisa makes 48 boxes. Using the data above, how many boxes of each flavour should she make? Again, pause the video and think about it logically. Now this is broken down into 2 parts for your answer. The first part is you have to simplify this ratio, create the ratio and then simplify it. Okay, so you can see the ratio is 60 to 140 to 40. You simplify that by keep subdividing it till you get it down to 3 to 7 to 2. So you now have a ratio that you can manage and work with. Now the second part is you take your 48 boxes and you divide it by the 12 parts. Right, and that gives you a value of 1 share or 1 part of 4. Then you just simply multiply it by the individual ratios to find out how much she needs to make. So you can see there that 4 times 3 means that she can do 12 strawberry boxes. 4 times 7 means she can make 28 vanilla boxes. Okay, and 4 times 2 means she will create 8 mint boxes. And again, if you want to check if your answer is correct, add these all up and it should come to 48. And if it doesn't, you've made a mistake somewhere. But if you got that answer, fantastic. Finish off. Ratios are mathematical relationships that are commonly used in a variety of real-life scenarios. Here are some examples of how ratios can be applied in everyday situations. Grocery shopping. When you go grocery shopping, you often compare prices and quantities to make cost-effective decisions. Cooking. In cooking, which is very common in your maths exams, ratios are essential for determining the proper amounts of ingredients in recipes. Recipes often provide ingredient ratios to ensure the right balance of flavours and textures in the final dish. But just like the ratios we've worked with, if you can find out the value of 1 share or 1 part, you can calculate anything. Travelling. Ratios can also be used to estimate travelling times. By considering the distance travelled and the speed of which you are travelling, you can calculate the time it will take to reach your destination. Currency conversion. When traveling abroad, ratios can be used to convert currency. And these are just some of the areas that use in real life with ratio. And that is ratio. So I hope that helped. Good luck.